Hello and welcome to the DrivingMaul show. Hi, I'm Paul. I'll be your host this evening. We talk about the Super Rugby final and also the All Blacks that have also been named just a couple of hours ago. Also, I'll sort of touch on some stuff happened over the weekend. So we had international rugby back as well over the weekend. So we'll have a quick chat about that as well. Looks like I'm going to be on there this evening. So it's probably a shortish one here. That's let's say get a sore throat just talking around solidly. So we'll do that. So don't forget, you can watch the show on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter at 8 p.m. on a Monday, or you can listen as a podcast as well. I just search for New Zealand Sports Radio for all of that kind of all that kind of stuff. So let's just kick off with some of the news and having a look at those results from the weekend. First up, we had Japan versus England, where the final result being 17 to 52, with just one penalty from Japan in the first half. It really was a blow-away in that game. Charlie Ewels picks up a red card for a real poor clean-out that nearly broke Michael Leach's knee or leg. So luckily, Michael Leach, I think, walked away from that one. And a bit similar that happened to Quinter Pyer last year, and that was a big, nasty injury. So he has now been banned for the next two games that England have, which will be against the All Blacks. And obviously, we'll be having a chat about the All Blacks squad as part of later on in the show. I'll be honest, I didn't see this one. I tried watching it on Rugby Pass, but couldn't get it to work. Because no one wanted to buy this game, which is just nuts. All very strange. So yeah, sorry, didn't see this one. But I think both sides would want to tidy up from this one. Japan missed 22 tackles. England missed 33 tackles. That's a whole chunk. Also, whilst Japan scrum and line-out was working, I think some question marks around the England scrum there, having lost a couple of scrums in that one. But turnovers was where England came out on top. 15 for Japan, 7 for England in that one. So turnovers is where Japan kind of lost this game. Also, they weren't clinical enough. 5 clean breaks for those 2 tries. England 8 clean breaks for their 8 tries. Only one of them was from a line-out maul as well. So good thing there for that one. Simon's pointed out that actually Rugby Fast only had the rights for England, Ireland, and Australia. So watching it here in New Zealand, I think, was pretty much impossible. So there you go. I've got an excuse then for not watching that one. I've not got an excuse for missing the South Africa Wales one though. I have, by the way, I've watched the highlights of the England Japan game on YouTube. For that one. Oh, and good evening, Mr. Harris. How are you doing, sir?
Very good, thank you, Paul. Right on cue, buddy. Or a little bit late, should I say?
Right on cue, dearie me. Yes, all right. Yes, Steve's. I'm not sure I've got right. Steven's timekeeping there. We'll call it on cue, maybe not. But anyway, just checking out Japan, England. For that one to say, I've only seen the highlights for this one. I've not actually seen anything else. I think one of the concerns I say for England will be that scrum, losing 2 scrums to Japan. But I think 7 of their 8 tries coming from broken play rather than from line-out mauls does bode well for a more interesting series against the All Blacks coming up over the next couple of weeks. But discipline will have to be sorted out, though. 16 penalties given away by England in this game. So discipline and defence, missing 33 tackles there. Now, Stephen, I know you haven't watched this one because it wasn't available in this country. So, but have you any sort of tidbits or anything from that game?
No, not really. I did see some of the tries, and some of England's tries were really impressive. It was a little bit hard to get a gauge on this Japanese side. Of course, a lot of them having just completed their their finals a few weeks ago. So I'm not too sure how much rugby those guys have had under their belt. Mind you, same could be said for a lot of the English players as well. Although just sort of looking through the personnel, a lot of familiar names that we saw during RWC 2023.
Yeah, exactly. So I say, because we couldn't watch it, we'll move on. Springboks versus Wales in England. So yes, nice. How the world of international rugby has changed, eh? In this one. Now look, this one finished 41-13, but look, it was 14-13 at half time. So yeah, a real tough first half there by Wales, but really just fell away in the second half of this one. Where the Springboks ran rampant, 7 clean breaks in the end to 1. But they did turn over the ball 17 times to 9. So I'm guessing quite a lot of that was in the first half. Also, set piece of both these teams a bit not looking so great. South Africa lost 1 scrum, but Wales lost 3. South Africa lost a couple of lineouts, as did Wales as well. So definitely some issues there to tidy up. But this was, look, one of the South African team were missing a bunch of players because the Bulls playing in the final of the Pro 14, not the Pro 14. Geez, what's it called? You won't nice rugby championships nowadays.
Yeah.
Jeez. And so these weren't full strength teams, and obviously Wales has gone through all sorts of issues, both financially and a whole bunch of other things on this one. So good win from South Africa. Really poor second half from Wales, which sort of fall away, but so a decent first half from them.
Yeah. Oh, you pretty much summed it up in one. Also, the game littered with a few cards as well. Two to Wales and 1 to South Africa, and that was in the first 40 odd minutes. Wales managed to claw their way back from 14-3 down after conceding a penalty try, and they fought back to, what was it, 14-13 at half time, but that's about as close as it got, as South Africa pretty much took control in that first 10 minutes of the second half.
Yeah, and it just sort of just blew away at that point, and then after it was the Wales just lost it. So look, a long way for Gatland to go, and Wales quite clearly. Look, they had a tough Six Nations as well. He says, having forgotten exactly how they finished that one, because they came last without any wins in the Six Nations. So yeah, a real tough time at the moment for Wales, and we'll have to see. Obviously, a long road for Gatland towards next Rugby World Cup. Whereas Rassie, on track with Brown there now as the attack coach. We perhaps saw again some start, probably some shoots of that work as well, to see a more attacking side out of the Springboks.
Yeah, Paul, I was going to say, I know, chatting to our good mate, friend of the show, John O'Connor, there just seemed to be a couple of backline moves that had Tony Brown's fingerprints all over it. I thought I was watching the Highlanders there for a little bit, just some of those out the door backline moves, and it was just good to see them. Just basically the Springboks trying to expand their game. Whether they'll go down that path when they get to some of the bigger games, Paul, or they'll revert back to type 1 or the type of play that we know that they're capable of. I guess we will just probably have to wait and see moving forward.
Yep. A couple of comments in the live chat. Congratulations to Glasgow for beating the Bulls in Pretoria for the to win the URC. I'll be honest, I've not seen that, but yeah, well done to them. That's a winning away, and that is one thing. Which they also won their semi-final away to Munster, but then to win away at altitude is a cracking. Just my lights collapsing on me over there. Is a cracking result for Glasgow. So well done to them on that one. That's, as I say, a tough place to go.
Oh, absolutely, Paul. Listen, they should get a lot of credit as well. I'm not entirely sure who actually coaches them, but if you kind of look at where they came from in this competition, obviously in the quarterfinal they had a very good win over the Stormers 27-10, and of course for the semi-final they weren't one of the top qualifiers. As I look back to the look back to the table, they were the 4th qualifying team, Paul. So that probably makes it even more impressive, the fact that they actually went all the way, and then they had to go to Munster, I think it was. So never easy to sort of to play against Munster in a semi-final, turning over the home side by 17 points to 10. And in this final, I managed to sort of catch some of the highlights. I watched. I must admit, I ended up watching the last 10 minutes. It was very, very tense at the end. But given the fact that they were down 13-0 after 26 minutes, they scored a try just before half time, before Husson, the first 5, stretched it with a penalty to 16-7 with 52 minutes to go. And you would have thought, basically from there on in, the Bulls, with their big home crowd support, big sellout at Loftus, would have basically taken the game home, but not to be. Couple of really good tries. George Turner from close range, and then Hugh Jones in support, scoring the tries to basically push it out to 21-16, and that's pretty much how it pretty much stayed. I was a bit concerned though for Glasgow. They had a missed penalty which would have basically stretched the lead out to 24-16 with about sort of 8 minutes to go. Horn missed a pretty kickable penalty which would have pretty much iced the game for Glasgow. But credit to the Bulls, they kept pushing for those 80 minutes, and Jordan got a yellow card for Glasgow, and it was very tense right at the end with a line-out drive that was held up close to the line. Referee looked at it and basically blew his whistle, and some pretty amazing scenes from the Glasgow players. But as I think Nocturnal Right said there, Josh Mackay, former Cantabrian, former Highlander as well. So a really, really big win, not just for Glasgow rugby, Paul, but I think for Scottish rugby as well, to go to Loftus. And with all that travelling, you wouldn't have put money on them to do that.
No, great result for them. But I mean, with Franco Smith, the ex Cheetahs and Italy head coach, being their head coach. So look, I mean, they had some local knowledge, at least on the coaches bench, with that one. But yeah, no, cracking result for them. As you say, coming from behind at Loftus is really unusual because of the altitude. So it did everything against type, really. Broke a lot of cliches.
Oh, absolutely. And there's some good players in this Glasgow Warriors team. Their midfield, Tuipulotu and Jones and Stein, all Scottish internationals, and even in their forward pack, Richie Gray. In the forward pack, Ferguson, they're tight head prop. They've all represented Scotland, and but I thought the player of their match was their number 8 Dempsey, just absolutely outstanding. In fact, the whole loose forward trio, along with Darge and Ferguson, were absolutely superb on the day. Probably outplayed their opposites of Lowe, Hannekim, and I thought Van Staden was very, very good. For the Bulls as well, scored a try. Probably for first 5, Gerson, probably not a day that he'll remember. Missed a couple of kickable penalties, and they could have proved all the difference at the end, but it wasn't to be.
No. Now also there was the Barbarians played Fiji. Now look, I don't think that the Japan, England, South Africa, Wales, all this Barbarians Fiji game should really have happened this past weekend, right? Until we get a global calendar and get it sorted out, just the lack of players, just to me, and clashing with club rugby just doesn't work. Look, the Barbarians won 45-32, but the main thing to come out of this game was actually the point that the Barbarians had players released from the English Premiership and the top 14, whereas the Fijian team didn't. Now, on the face of it, and I know Stephen, you've been in our chat, you disagree with the think that's been very wrong, and on that side of things. So I'll let you go first, and then I'll kind of add a bit of a counterpoint after that.
Yeah, little, yeah, it's a little bit staggering when you basically you're trying to look for a little bit of balance, but the reality is I'm not too sure why these clubs would release your regular players to the championship, but won't release other players. Of the tweet that I saw when Fiji Rugby asked the English and French clubs for their players to be released for the Barbars game this weekend, they were told, no, it's outside the release window. Yet there were 11 players from the same two leagues were released for the Barbarians to play against them. Paul, counter case. I'd like to hear it.
Okay, so the counter case is this, basically. We're heading into the off season for those two leagues. The Barbarians, it's a one-off game, and that's it. All the players that play for the Barbarians are not playing for their countries. So after this game, they're in the off season, and they actually get the rest before going into the pre-season next for next season. The flip side of that for Fiji, and I know players weren't released for Wales as well, was that they've got a whole bunch more games to play in the international season, all the way through, including the Rugby Championship winner this year, because that's when the Pacific Nations Cup is taking part. So those players aren't about to get an off season, and so look, there is a so that's I think why the Barbarians or the players were released to the Barbarians, because they're non-internationals. Then that's it, they're done now. Whereas the players who are playing for international teams, not just Fiji, but also Wales as well, because I think Wales didn't have players released, weren't released by these leagues. So it's a little bit more, it's a bit more nuanced, but I think the answer is you shouldn't be playing international stuff during club season at the end of the day. I can see where they're coming from. Is it a good look? Is it right? No. But it just shows the mess that is rugby administration at the end of the day.
Yeah, you probably put it in a good light, Paul. That the issue is not so much about the clubs, but where the window is. You know, if you're going to play a game outside this window, well, be prepared not to have players available, and it is what it is. Don't complain about it.
Unfortunately, look, I mean, people are going to complain about it, absolutely, and the uneven treatment of teams is very true. Look, why can England put their full team together? Well, because all those players play in England or play in the English league, and the RFU pays the teams to release those players, and they refuse, and they don't pick players from overseas, right? So they don't have a problem with top 14 players being released because they don't select them. A bit like why can the All Blacks play whenever they like? Well, because they only select players in New Zealand, and basically the New Zealand Rugby Union pays or basically finances the Super Rugby teams. That's what they say when they can have the players. So clearly Fiji just don't have the cash.
So fair to say England's gone down a similar road to the All Blacks in and around centrally contracted players, Paul.
No. No. Now, they're all still contracts to their clubs. Just the RFU gives the money to the clubs, not to the players, to get the release. So it's a different structure, but the same end result.
Yeah.
Look, is it right? No, it's not. Until the Six Nations moves into the Rugby Championship window, and we say that basically July to December is international, January to June is domestic, we're going to have this problem. So, but that's the only solution I can see to this. But as I say, we're never going to get there because the European teams refuse to do anything with Six Nations, because Six Nations funds European rugby. Anyway, so let's move on from our kind of news section and get into get into the game from the weekend, because we had the Super Rugby final with the Blues versus the Chiefs. Let's be honest, not the spectacle that we were expecting and definitely hoping for. But I think we knew that pretty early on. The first bite of the cherry went to the Chiefs. The Chiefs got the ball into the Blues 22 and didn't get a try or come away with points. And after that, essentially, once the Blues got the upper hand, look, the weather helped them, helped their style of play much more than it helped the Chiefs' style of play, because it was wet weather rugby, and therefore handling, etc., is harder. That's right. Blues didn't play fair. They had all the ball and territory. Yeah, well, exactly. They earned all the ball and territory because their forwards got across that gain line and looked after the ball. In the end, the Chiefs missing 32 tackles compared to only 17 by the Blues. And look, the Blues kicked the ball away more. The Blues kicked the ball 23 times to the Chiefs 13. But even so, they still had 67% of the possession. So even though they kicked the ball more, away more, they still had it for longer. So yeah, a clinical performance from the Blues. But a lot of people will look at that number, that 41 number. But actually, I think that defensive stand in the first 5 minutes was as big a piece to this as was their ability to score tries, because getting on the scoreboard first and not letting the Chiefs get in front, like the Chiefs did the previous weekend against the Hurricanes, really meant they were in control of this game all the time and didn't have to worry about chasing in the same way that Hurricanes did.
Yeah, Paul, I think you've pretty much summed up a lot what I was going to say. Listen, it was a victory for a very short passing game using your big forwards. I think there was about a 900 kg Blues pack, and boy, they were just so effective. Listen, they made the odd mistake, but usually those mistakes were made inside the red zone, which meant it was up for the Chiefs to clear the ball. But the Blues were just putting so much pressure. I mean, to say it, probably better exemplified by around about the begging your pardon, probably round about the 25th, 26th minute, when the Blues had pretty much camped down in the Chiefs area. The Chiefs managed to turn it over and had an opportunity to kick it down the field. Unfortunately for Etienne Nanai-Satoro, he put the kick over the touchline on the full, and it came back. You know, you just released that pressure valve, and then all of a sudden the valve was stuck straight back on. The blowtorch was stuck straight back on you. And unfortunately, you know, the Blues are a little bit more of a savvy side these days. They kept that pressure on till halftime, got a penalty right on halftime, but decided, you know what, we'll just take the points and keep the scoreboard ticking over to go to 20-3 at halftime. You kind of wondered if the Chiefs were pretty much done. But I think by the time that Dyer, the loose head prop, see the loose head or the tight head prop got his card, excuse me, on the 51st minute, and then from the result of that, Caleb scored the try. I think at 27-3, it was good as done, Paul.
Yeah, and that penalty at half time for two things. The score before that was 17-3, so it's a 2-score lead. By putting the penalty over, you go to a 3-score lead, which makes a big difference in this. It's the difference between being 7-0 up and 8-0 up is massive in rugby. That 1 point is much more important and worth and much bigger than being the difference between being 3 points and 4 points up. That 1 point isn't really that impressive, but so knowing it's not just a matter of keeping the scoreboard ticking over or always take your threes, but knowing psychologically or knowing kind of how important is that one extra point, and in this case, it takes you to 3 scores. It's very important. So hence the right thing to do on halftime. Yes, you got the momentum going in. You've got the last score, but also to go that 3 scores up showed good captaincy from Patrick Tuipulotu, who why the hell he's playing or how the hell he was playing, who knows? Because there's either a lot of misinformation or lots of guessing as to what his injury really was. I don't know, but he shouldn't. But all they knew was he shouldn't have been playing that game beforehand because of the.
I'm suggesting there was probably a misdiagnosis somewhere in there.
Misdiagnosis or deliberately deliberate deliberate games.
Yeah, maybe some mind games going on, because I tell you what, he looked pretty good. He looked pretty good to me. He almost looked like he could have, instead of playing 60 odd minutes, he could have played the full 80 minutes if required. But he set the tone with his very first carry, didn't he? When he just basically powered his way through a couple of the Chiefs forward. And I think it's like any game of rugby. I think if you start well, it usually in most cases flows on. And he was superb. Usually in a final, you'd hope that 6 or 7 players will play at their optimum best. But in the case of the Blues, boy, you could argue the full 23 played really, really well. In fact, I actually thought even the likes of Dalton Papali was a little bit quiet, but maybe that was because the rest of the guys, Akira Ioane was pretty outstanding. Doskin Satutu was solid, but mate, a lot of some of the non-All Blacks put their hands up as well. Riccatelli, I thought, was very good, and out in the back line, AJ Lamb, wow, on the carry, his post meters were incredible. I think he had the fourth best carries of the whole Blues team, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, Caleb Clark led for meters with 92, and then AJ Lamb was 67 meters gained. So as far as total meters, but I mean the carries. Why did Papali'i perhaps not do much carrying? Well, because look, Akira Ioane 18 carries, Hoskins Tutu 15 carries, Papali'i 1. But you know what? If you're going to allow Satutu and Akira Ioane to have the energy to those carries, someone's got to be doing the tackling. And I think that's where we'll find where Papali'i was. Again, same with Riccatelli. You mentioned, it was very visible with 16 carries and Tuipulotu with a number as well. But yeah, you see, you need someone to do the other work, and that's why balance in that back row is really kind of important in that one. So. But a couple of players, I guess, Nana Sotoro. I mean, some talk about him being potentially sort of on the fringe of All Blacks contention. Didn't have a particularly good game from that point of view, and perhaps showed up that he's not a wet weather player. That actually he's in the dry, fantastic or really really good, but perhaps these kind of conditions not really suited to him in that one. But even with this result, you've still got a big sprinkling of All Blacks coming from this Chiefs team as well. So definitely didn't change Razor's or his assistants' views about the players too much from this one, that's for sure. So it's a big. So you say it's that back row is very much. In fact, the whole team, to a certain degree, is about balance. Let's be honest. And as to where again with the good mix of wingers, with Caleb Clark, your power winger, and Mark Talia, your more elusive winger as well, is a good team, kind of all round.
Paul, the other thing that this Blues team, excuse me, does very well. If you look at their backline, it's probably one of the bigger backlines, bar sort of Christie and Perofeta, because if you look through the rest of the backline, these are pretty solid guys, and you can use them close in like an extra loose forward. Like Plummer doesn't mind carrying, Rico Ioane doesn't mind carrying, and of course we know Talia is like is basically like like a slippery eel. He's always hard to pull down. It seems like he's almost wearing Teflon. You just can't seem to touch him. And of course, AJ Lamb has brought a lot of physicalness to that position as well. And I thought that was another area where they were very, very good. Listen, they're a no-nonsense team, Paul. You don't see too many pods stacked left and right. It's just carry clean.
In this weather, yes, but up against when they played against the Brumbies, there were a lot of tip-ons just before contact. And so fine. There might not be a pod or separate pods. But there's a pod of players running, and they were moved. It wasn't just purely let's power over them. They were moving the point of contact. Now, in dry conditions, you can do that. In wet conditions, it's a lot less easy to do so. So a lot of people just said, "Oh, all you got to do for the Blues is front up. You know what's coming. You have to deal with it." I don't think Vern Cotter's game plan is quite as simple as the. As some of the mainstream commentators are kind of playing it out to be.
Yep.
I think there's a bit more to it than that.
Yeah. No, don't disagree with anything you say. You know, just in summary, it's been 21 years since this Blues team has won a title, and boy, you could not have been any more decisive than that. It's obviously a victory for the coach, and having to change a Blues team from an attacking side that everybody likes seeing these brilliant tries, but sometimes that style doesn't always come with success. Paul, it's very pretty to watch. This was much more of a grinding victory, but it was still, nevertheless, it was still very impressive how they went about their business. Yeah, sure, it rained a couple of hours before kick off, and there was still inclement rain while the game was happening. But it is what it is. For the Chiefs, I feel a bit sorry for them. It's their second year in a row that they've had to basically be the bridesmaid in this competition. I'm pretty sure they got a lot of respect for Clayton McMillan. I think he'll go away and think really hard about the areas that he needs to build this Chiefs lineup. I personally think they're probably a little bit thin at lock, Paul, which has really been a strength. Which has been a strength in the past when they had the likes of a fit Josh Lord, a Brody Retallick. They had a lot of options, so they could basically rotate. And if you look, they've been using sort of like Tupu Vai, but he's been out. I don't think he played in the round robin game. Jimmy Tupou, who's more of a veteran who started his career more or less as a loose forward, as opposed to lock. And of course, with those other injuries, they probably underused the likes of Manaki Selby Rickett. But I just kind of wondered if they offset that with maybe wanting to have a stronger scrum with your two more solid locks. So I thought they were a little bit probably a little bit underdone in terms of personnel in that area. Where you look at the Blues, and then in terms of their locking stocks, even though they had Patrick Tuipulotu out for a few weeks, they managed to actually cover that position with the likes of Derry and McConnell and the youngster Josh Berry.
McConnell, he's also been injured as well, because he was with he had a horrible injuries period with the Chiefs until last year. But yeah, injuries definitely were a factor for the Chiefs here. Missing also their hooker, some saying Tokelahu as well. So yeah, it's but injuries are part of it. So you've got to that's part of the game, and you just have to front up with you. It's a squad game, and the Blues survived their injuries better than the Chiefs did in this one. So well done. I think the story out of this season though has been that whereas for the past 10 years it's been we know who's going to win at the beginning of the season, the Crusaders. This year we've had three teams that in the Canes, the Blues and the Chiefs at the very least, that have all been potential winners, and if the Brumbies can get a few more bits together, perhaps they can get into that, being part of that conversation as well. So it definitely looks good for next year as far as the competitiveness of the league goes. Well, assuming that there is a league next year with the Rebels having to split, but that's not. We'll stay away from that topic for 1 weekend, 1 week at least.
Yeah, Adley, I was going to say, Paul, probably the only real concern for me is the number of players that are leaving Australia. I see the Waratahs have lost a few players overseas. Admittedly, you would imagine some players from the Rebels will be farmed across those other 4 franchises, but we really do need those teams to be far more competitive. I mean, to say the Brumbies were the best of the Australian teams. Unfortunately for them, just travelling across the side of the Tasman was a little bit of an issue. I don't know I can't think of the number of wins that sides had over this side of the Tasman, but I'd say it was probably just a handful, if that. I can recall the Brumbies beating the Highlanders down in Dunedin, and of course I can remember the Reds beating the Crusaders in Christchurch, but in the main it was pretty slim pickings.
So I think most Rebels will head overseas or play league. I think there's people like Topu and a few others. There's definitely players that the Wallabies cannot afford to lose. So some of them will be there. Yes, there was the shock move of Donaldson across to league, but as he couldn't, then the Wallabies were messing around with or Australia Rugby was messing around with offering a contract. He was like, well, if you're going to mess around, I'm going to take this one instead. Thank you. Bye. So yes. Was it Donaldson or Carter? Anyway, the fly half from the Rebels anyway.
Carter Gordon.
Thank you, Carter Gordon. On that one. Right. Let's get on to The All Black squad then. Looking at the clock. So what we've got here is the on the plane, or there's a spreadsheet that Cornflake and I did earlier in the season. So let's see how close we got to. This was halfway through the season, so we can have a look and see how close we got to what Razor said, and we can also see whether we agree with him or not. The players in bold are the players that were at the Rugby World Cup last year, and the players that are not in bold are the ones that weren't there last year. Just as if you're wondering, for those of you who are watching rather than listening to the podcast. But anyway, running from the top then of the All Blacks selections at hooker, they've gone for Asafoa Amua, Cody Taylor, and George Bell. With also Samisoni Tokilaho was not considered for selection due to injury. So I'll move him over to the injured column straight away for that one. So I think if Samisoni Tokilaho had been fit, I think he would have been selected. In which case, I think we would have been pretty much spot on with who was going to be selected there. George Bell, I think. Well, he's obviously there, but I think he's keeping a seat warm at the moment for Samisoni. So we'll see how that one goes. But I think, people are saying Riccatelli was unlucky. Whilst he's improved his arrows, I still think that he's a very good Super Rugby player, but I don't trust him at the next level personally.
Yeah, he's been around and he's had a very, very improved season, as have several others that are in the Blues this year, where we've kind of been waiting for them to sort of explode, and it all came together. But I just think that like you say, if Samisoni Takiaho was available, they would have been an automatic selection. I actually see the likes of George Bell, probably the biggest surprise. Both Bell and we'll get to one of the props as well. Probably the biggest surprises. George Bell had a very good season in 2023 when coming off the bench for the Crusaders. But that's when they had a lot of experience around them. You had Sam Whitelock. They didn't have as many injuries. It was a completely different story this year with the Crusaders. It seemed like a revolving door each week in terms of who was available, and just didn't seem to find his mojo, especially at line-out time. But we do know his potential, and that's what he's been selected on.
Yeah, it looks like it's not George Bell is an anointed one, not good for New Zealand rugby. Well, no, sometimes when you say anointed one, people say project players that have had a lot of investment in over a long time. I guess depends which way you look at it. So from that point of view, but so he's there now. Amongst the props then, and boy oh boy, I think we were all over the shop on this one because the props that were mentioned, Ethan de Groot and Chura Lomax, like we expected. Fletcher Newell, who we also thought would be there, and Timothy Williams as well. But we thought that basically the offer was probably on the way out, but he has actually re-signed with New Zealand Rugby. I thought you'd be heading overseas, but apparently not. And then looking around at the other names, well, we haven't even written down the name of the sixth lot that was chosen.
Yep.
So I think when you're saying the biggest surprise, I think by a long way,
Pasilio Tossi,
as you say,
Pasilio Tossi. You're right. He's not even. He didn't even fit on your spreadsheet. Paul,
we've got names like Aidan Ross, George Bauer, Xavier Numia, Ollie Norris, Joe Moody, Angus Ta'avo, Owen Franks. We haven't even got this guy on the list. So he is the biggest surprise by a long shot for me in this one to have made it.
But I've got to say, it's a deserved selection. He's looked very good. Let's not forget. He basically propped against. I think he might have propped that head propped. He might have actually propped against Ofa Tuangawhasi when the Hurricanes played the Blues, and the scrum held up very well when he was on that right hand side. So maybe he gets that spot. Maybe the likes of Xavier Numia with that injury, but by my reckoning, that will give them, with Tyrell Lomax, 3 tight head props, or does Fletcher? I think Fletcher Newell can also play tight head as well. So maybe he is a little bit of a project as well.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised that Xavier Numia isn't there. And people sort of be saying how wonderful a season he's had there on that one. So, but we'll see. Yeah, how that one plays out. Sorry, do you think Numia is injured currently?
Yes, he is. I believe he is.
Because but they haven't. That's not why he wasn't selected, though. It was the they didn't say that was why he wasn't selected. So because some of the players, they did actually say. So Takilaho, for example, was actually name checked as being injured and therefore not available for selection. So they didn't say that about Xavier Numia. In the live chat, Nocturnal Right says, remember Isaiah Toeva picked way too early, wrecked potentially a good All Blacks career. Look, just because George Bell is in the squad doesn't mean he's going to actually get any game time. Okay, or if he does, it might be minimum. But Asafa Amua, I think he was an All Black 4-5 years ago now. But this will be his first kind of season actually. As I say, he's not in bold because he wasn't at the Rugby World Cup last year. This is breakthrough. So just because they're given an opportunity and A, had a look at, B, shown what the environment is like, and then told to go away and get ready for this environment later. So I think one of the things about Amua is I think he's grown up and is much more professional as a player. Because remember, he came back off one off season overweight. They don't talk about that nowadays. So he has learned from that experience, and I think so. Exposing them to the environment is not necessarily a bad idea. On that one,
Paul, I will say, just with regards to Pasilio Tosi, I saw an interview with him on the breakdown tonight, and I was very, very impressed on how eloquently he spoke. He came across as very intelligent and more importantly, very humble. Even had the foresight to say, listen, it wasn't until I heard my name. I still can't believe it, but I probably won't believe it until I run out on the paddock. So, for me, it just shows a degree of humbleness. So, yeah, good luck to him. So, yeah, definitely Bell and yeah, you're right, Tossie. They are surprises, but even if you look at George Bell, Paul, he wasn't on your spreadsheet either. So
George Bell wasn't. Well, he was on the spreadsheet, but he was waiting at home, so he wasn't in the. So he was at least he was on the spreadsheet.
Oh, okay. He was on the spreadsheet.
I had to type Tossie's name in because he wasn't even on the spreadsheet.
Wow.
We thought we'd got pretty much everyone that would be even vaguely. So yes. Moving on then to because I don't think there's anyone else. Oh, also George Bauer. Actually, to be fair, he actually is there as cover. Now, quite why they've got 4 players down there here as cover, I don't know, and why they need a seventh prop as cover, I don't get that either. But yeah, he's in there as cover.
Something. Yeah, the pennies just dropped. I think Ofa Tuangawhasi was pretty banged up after that Super Rugby final. So they've, by having the likes of Pasilio Tosi in, they've gone for a little bit of like for like, and they've just brought George Bauer in as extra cover, but more of a he's a loose head prop, so he could be there just to cover the likes of De Groot and possibly Fletcher Newell.
Yeah. So, but I mean, Offa can play on both sides. There. So, but anyway, yeah. So maybe he's been brought in for that. Now, the one area I'm going to disagree with what Razor's done so far. Look, Xavier Numia a bit unlucky. Otherwise, pretty much all the kind of the names that were in the top end or on the left, towards the left of it, were the ones being selected. So we've got no arguments so far really with his selections. But the next one I do have a problem with, which is is in the locks, because he's only gone for 3 locks in Barrett, Vai, and Patrick Tuipulotu. Personally, Patrick at 31, is he going to make it to next Rugby World Cup? I'm not sure. So hence that's why we had him over at Waiting at Home, because we thought that he was perhaps a bit long in the tooth. But hey, clearly they're giving him a go. But yeah, so just I think you need more than 3 locks in your squad, and they have brought in some cover. But to me, which again is Sam Darry, who wasn't actually on our list either, which just shows you how many good locks there are in the country at the moment. Not necessarily all of them fit. So again, I think they definitely. I think the main squad should have 4 locks in there, not 3. You have 3 in a match day squad. All you need is one of them to pull up slightly injured, and yeah.
To be honest, there's nobody in that group, whether it's Waiting at Home or on holiday, that really strikes me. Maybe Isaiah Walker-Leawere, who struck some really good form in the semi-final, especially. Thought he was very good, but they may have too many issues just around discipline when it comes to Isaiah in terms of penalties. Josh Lord is injured at the moment. You've got to say it's probably a little thin in terms of quality, Paul.
Yeah, Hologram 2-pack says Lord is always injured, like Blackadder. Don't know how he's going to work out as a prospect. Yeah, look, I mean, Lord's had a bad couple of years, definitely, and hopefully he can have a proper off season and come back properly next season and put those behind him. But because he's definitely a prospect.
Yeah, listen, being injured is basically shouldn't be a case for not being selected. Yeah, sure, you're injured and you've got to have your rehab, but if you've got quality and you come back and you play well, you wouldn't be the first player that's ever achieved that. There's been a lot of players throughout the history of rugby who have got injured, and sometimes they've had more than their shares of injuries. But you know, I'm a great believer, if you've got a bit of class and you've played a bit of international rugby, and when you have been on display, you've showed your wares. I don't think something like that should count against you. Sure, some players just have out and out bad luck at times, Paul, and you kind of wonder whether they came back too early, or just maybe should have looked at another career in life. But listen, let's just hope that somebody like Josh Lord maybe he needed to just stay away from the game a little bit longer. Like I'm also concerned a little bit about Patrick Tuipulotu, but you know, credit to him, he's got back on the field, and I think he knows there's an opportunity to cement himself in an All Black 15. Like in a perfect world, if he was fit and hit the ground running, probably Tuipulotu and Barrett would be your starting locks, Paul.
As I say, age to me is against him on this one. I'd probably start Vi, because I think he's going to be there at next Rugby World Cup. So I want him to get experience now. But there you go. So and he went to the last Rugby World Cup. So I put Patrick after him personally, but that's just an opinion one rather than necessarily a on that one. So Lord has packed on a lot of beef. His frame is still adjusting. Yep, let's just hope it is just that, and it's not a it's nothing else apart from sort of growing pains for that point of view. Now I thought they were going to go with 5 back rows, but they haven't. They've gone with 6. So let's put an extra column in there. And Sam Cane, they've said that he has not been considered because of injury. So he's one of those ones that has been name checked. Now, to me, I'll be honest, Sam Cane, I don't think he should come back into the All Black squad purely because he's not going to make it to the World Cup. And I think we should be thinking about that now. Yes, he's 2 or 3 caps short of his 100, and it'd be really nice. I think he's one of those players who deserves to get there. But unfortunately, it hasn't happened for him. Not everyone gets what they deserve. Unfortunately, he's been a fantastic servant for the All Blacks on that one. Look, to the right says Jason Ryan really does not like Satutu. Well, yes. Who knows what's going on there on that one. But the black row, Ethan Blackadder, I think we kind of expected. He was at the right kind of end of things. Finau, again, look, he was on that kind of reserve list for the All Black for the Rugby World Cup last year. Luke Jacobson was at the Rugby World Cup, has been a under 20s or Baby Blacks captain. Arlie Surveyor in there, and Dalton Papialihi. And again, I'm going to have to do some typing here because this guy had a really good second half of the season, but really wasn't ripping up trees at the beginning of the earlier, which is Wallace Satiti. Now, in some ways, I don't actually agree with this selection. Look, his first year at Super Rugby, I think this could be one of those ones where you are rushing a guy through that actually he could do with just being just going on the All Blacks 15 or the or if he's eligible the Maori All Blacks. To me, look, he's only had 1 year of Super Rugby. How about letting him actually kind of just get used to being a professional rugby player? To my mind, he's only 21, whereas the Tossie, look, he's 25. George Bell, 22. They're just a little bit older on that one. So for my mind, that's it. That's my only thought there. Is that I think the other five we all kind of knew were going to be there. I think Wallace Satiti, I wouldn't have picked him, to be honest.
Yeah, I am a little bit surprised. I think Hoskins is the biggest surprise in terms of omissions. Yeah, there could be other sides. I see there's just a comment there that's just come up, Paul. If you want to bring it up again. For me, it could be something that's actually outside rugby. Could be in and around work ethic. I don't really know. I don't think coaches go out to dislike players. They want to see the best players. They want to see the best players in there. Unfortunately, under probably Jason Ryan probably has the final say when it comes to forwards, and he's making a judgment call that he's going to have to live and die on it. So I hope for his sake, Wallace Satiti does work out, because I know, talking to a few people around the Auckland scene, Wallace was 2 years ago the Blues under 20 skipper and had an issue with his work ethic, but he's gone down to the Chiefs under Clayton McMillan and pretty much turned that around, and we're seeing his skill. But gee whiz, we saw it in a few games, and to be fair to Hoskins Satutu, he was pretty consistent throughout the whole season. Might have fallen away for a couple of games, but I think he probably has. I think he's done everything asked of him, especially in and around physicality, a physicality that I haven't seen before. But Paul, we all know when an All Black side is selected, there's always those oddities, and I think this is the one you put in the odd box.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's not the first time by any stretch of the imagination that someone's been rushed through. A certain blindside flanker who will head over to Japan, and I've gone blank as to his name now, from the Highlanders. It came through after about 3 games or something silly, because he had what the All Blacks coach were looking for. But I say Wallace Satiti has got a long career ahead of him as long as he stays injury free. So that's why I think it might just be rushing him a little bit much. I think that's why that's from my opinion. It's nothing against the guy, nothing against his ability. It's more an experience thing there that perhaps let the guy grow up a bit is kind of where I'm coming from on that one. But yeah, lots of players Karifi's been having lots of Peter Lakai have all been getting lots of huge raps during this season. But haven't kind of made it. Akira Iwani heading over to Japan. I think he kind of knew the writing was on the wall. He wasn't going to get this far. I mean, some comments in the live chat saying about Vern Cotter being kind of disciplinarian who wouldn't put up with bad laziness and stuff. Hey, and Kiriwani having one of his best seasons. Not perhaps something linked there, but also perhaps why he's also heading overseas as well on that one. I don't know. But yeah. So that's the forwards then. As we say, on the whole, okay. Nothing particularly out of order. Yes, a couple of names that perhaps you wouldn't necessarily agree with, or that you have different opinions on, but nothing to be kind of particularly throwing your toys out the pram about, essentially. So we come to the backs then. What is he doing with the halfbacks? I'm a great believer you either have Finlay Christie or you have TJ Perenara. You don't take both of them. All right. The TJ 32, Finlay Christie 28. To me, TJ at 32 is not going to the next Rugby World Cup. Will Finlay Christie? Look, he's young enough that he can do. And look, he's got the experience, so you don't need two experienced campaigners. Hand that over. Cam Roygaard clearly would have been in there if things had been if he'd been fit. Cortez Ratima is the one that is the young guy that they've decided to go with. In there, look, he's had a good season and has pushed Xavier Rowe down the pecking order at the Chiefs. And Falau Fakatava perhaps hasn't kicked on in the kind of way that people were hoping he would do after he came out of the shadow of Aaron Smith.
Yeah, I agree with you to a point, but I just wonder if Razor was just a little bit concerned with the loss of experience, just having another experienced head. Sure, you've got the likes of Finlay Christie there. They're always going to bring a new guy through. The interesting question to me, who doesn't make it if Cam Roygaard was available? You'd immediately think that the last two halfbacks you took to the World Cup make the side. So maybe TJ Perenara is in there just maybe because of experience. You look through the other potential halfbacks. Noah Hotham was good probably in this once he found his feet. Showed some really, really good form. I think he's probably one for the future. So just looking at what you've got in your sort of waiting room and waiting in the the lounge pool. If you drop.
Noah Hotham I put in the same kind of category as I've gone blank as for TT. Again, it's his first year at Super Rugby level. Just so give the kid a year to get used to being a professional and learning what it's like before putting him straight up. So Hotham I wouldn't have brought through, but Falau Fakatava, perhaps I'd have put him in there and said, okay, right, this is what we expect from you. And if you don't do this, you ain't coming back again. I'd have thought that kind of talk would have been good for Fakatava, I think. But that's that's that one. Yeah, I agree with Hologram 2-pack. If Hotham has another good year next season, he might be in. Yes, might be, not will be, but might be. Then I would look at him then personally on that one. I mean, Razor must know Hotham because he's coming through that kind of academy at the Crusaders. So I think he would have known him as well.
Oh yeah, listen, there's a few young guys that are sort of going to be clipping at the heels next year. Obviously, the likes of Hotham. I'm just escaped me the name of the Blues halfback of Funaki, who I thought took his opportunities relatively well. I do believe the Blues are holding on to the same three halfbacks next year, so there's going to be some real hot competition to get that number one spot, or even prize it off Finlay Christie. A lot of talk about Finlay Christie, whether he's up to it, but man, he showed on Saturday night. He's a big time player, so he deserves a spot. Listen, in the wash up at the end of the day, I think Perenara pretty much gets in there because Cam Roygaard's not available, Paul.
Yeah, I definitely put him down as 3. What is Razor's contract situation? Is he 4 years or 2 years? I don't know. On that one, it should be 4. I mean, messing around with 2 years is a joke. Sorry, Hotham came through the Highlanders Academy. Okay, so maybe he doesn't know him that well on that one. When is Roy Guide expected back? I think it's season ending. Is it May? Oh, it's actually no. I listened to a podcast with him, the What Lad podcast. He's trying to get back for the November tour, the end of year tour.
Wow.
So we will see if he makes it back in time for that or not. Personally, don't rush it. Get a real solid pre-season in and go back to the Hurricanes, for my mind, rather than trying to rush back personally. But there you go. First 5 dates then. Bowden Barrett, Damon McKenzie, pretty much what I think we kind of realistically expected. Sure, Brett Cameron has had a good season. Aidan Morgan is going overseas, so I'm going to delete his name off. Harry Plummer as well. But yeah, look, Harry Plummer's done very well at Super Rugby, but I think that's his level, personally. Brett Cameron, I think has got a little bit more about him, but clearly Razor definitely knows him from his time at the Crusaders and has decided not to go in that direction with him there. So yes, I'm not sure there's much to discuss on the first 5 dates.
No, pretty predictable once again, but you can almost understand why Razor, in the early part of his career, shot up to Japan to see what to have a cup of tea or a coffee with Richie Moanga. You can probably see why there was probably a little bit of concern that there wasn't a lot of really good first 5 cover. I kind of look at what's coming through Super Rugby, and boy, outside the top guys, it was pretty underwhelming. Interesting what the hologram two-pack is saying. Harry Plummer would be good if you only need a guy to kick the ball and not run a back line. For a certain style of game, he kind of reminds me a little bit of the South African first 5, Pollard, big, tall, strapping, kicks his goals, takes the ball to the line when he kind of needs to. Is that sort of player. The only difference is Pollard's got banked a couple of Rugby World Cups under his belt, and obviously can play at that level. Yeah, Harry Plummer. Listen, great season, and it's to be celebrated. I know he's been very maligned over the years by a lot of people out there on the social network, especially. So, man, guy had a great season. Whether, like you say, All Black level is his next ceiling, I have my doubts. I stand to be corrected, Paul.
Yeah, I don't think that a name that we should put in here though is Cam Miller for the future. A good season towards the end of the year with the Highlanders. So someone I think we should be at least have the name in the on the spreadsheet at this time. Yes, he can go on holiday. I can't see him making the All Blacks anytime soon. But say just a name that's in there, just like Harry Plummer's name is. To be fair.
Yeah.
In the centres, then we've got Rico Iwani, Anselm Brown, Geordie Barrett. I mean, they kind of select themselves there. I thought Quintapire would be the kind of the next one up, but Billy Proctor has shown us why he when he joined when he joined the Hurricanes, he joined them with like a 5-year contract as a kid. You're like, what? You've come in out of NPC with zero experience at Super Rugby, and they're giving you a 5-year contract. Boy, I know your brother used to be captain of the Canes, but still. So yeah, look, clearly we're talking about anointed ones. He was one of the anointed ones, right?
Oh.
And he's made his case and coming through.
Hugely. Yeah, and listen, and he's backed it up with form. He's formed a really, really good combination with Geordie Barrett. So I reckon that's probably helped his selection as well. As well, Paul probably wasn't their best games in the semi-final, but that's more credit to the Chiefs than anything else. Probably to me a little bit of a surprise that David Havili didn't make it, but it also shows that but some people will probably think the likes of Razor is biased, but there you go. Obviously not.
Well, except David Havili is in there as cover.
Oh, oh, there you go.
So he's one of the 4 players that's in there as cover, who's assembling with a squad. Now, look, one of the things when you come in as a leader of an organisation, especially one like this where you've got to be successful straight away, one of the things you do is you bring in people you trust, because you haven't got time to necessarily gain the trust of everybody, and hence that's why I think a player like David Havili is in there. Possibly also why a player like George Bauer has been brought in as these kind of cover roles. Is they're players that Razor trusts, that will not let him down. Will they set the world alight? Will they win your Rugby World Cup? Probably not. But will they do the basics? Will they behave themselves? Will they show the right culture that he wants to have around the club? Around the squad? Yes. The hologram Tupac saying, Razor making up for him after torturing him, making him play 10. So that's why he's there. He's there because Razor knows him and what he can do. He's definitely not there on form. Let's be blunt. But he's there as cover because he is that Swiss Army knife man who can play a lot of positions and just cover a lot of places, and will be very good running opposition as well on the training pitch. So, as far as upside goes, look, Levi Amuas, your Quinta Pyers, even Dallas McLeod, Daniel Rona, those guys have got much more upside potential than David Havili. Let's be blunt. Well done, Billy Proctor. Paying back the thing people had faith in them in there. G says, why Christie and not someone like TJ? Loving the show, by the way. Well, thank you for saying you're loving it. Basically, Christie's 4 years younger than TJ, so he's actually going to be around next Rugby World Cup, whereas TJ isn't. That's the only difference, his age on TJ.
Yeah. And Christie's a heck of a competitor, isn't he, Paul?
Oh, I mean, so is TJ. They both are, but yeah. So no, it's just purely down to experience, to age, as to why I think why I would take Christie ahead of TJ, and take someone else. Moving in then, Hector wears cornflake, busy with work. Sorry, folks. Yeah, so that's why he's with us. How old is TJ? He is 32, and hence 34 at the next Rugby World Cup or whatever. So hence, could he? Well, yes, he probably could, but I don't think he will. So on that one. Moving then down to so we had Stephen Perifetta down as a first 5'8", but Razor said no, he's a fullback. Let's put him in his back three. He's also got Caleb Clark, who has, whilst we had him down sort of further dropping back at mid-season, Caleb Clark has had a fantastic finish to the season, has really got himself back up to the kind of form he had before he went off to play sevens, basically. And then Mark Talia was a definite, and Sevu Reese is perhaps the only player who has had a good season with the Crusaders on that one. And then Nawaya has come through. Look, only missed out in the World Cup last year really because of back injury. He was in the original squad, which is why he's bold. And so he's come through after a good season with the Chiefs. And then Ruben Love is in there as cover. Ruben Love, Perifetta ahead of Ruben Love. I guess that comes down to personal choice. Yep. I had Love ahead of Perifetta, but both of those is where I am, kind of with that one. But that's, again, it's not one to throw toys out the pram about. It's just one to say, yeah, personally, I'd have gone a different route, but hey.
Yeah, and I've got to say, just on Sean Stevenson, I'm a massive fan, but I think I'll be the first to say that never really grasped his opportunity. I think he had a bit of a hamstring injury during the final series, which probably didn't help him. But there were times during the season defensively, probably got caught out a few times, Paul, and it wasn't as vintage as it was in 2023. So I'm disappointed because I think he is a skillful player and has got a skill set to play international rugby. But if you've got other guys playing better code, you go with him.
Yeah, look, I think Shaw seems to be doing very well at super level, but I think big boot and more of a kicking fullback rather than a kind of a mazy running one. Or more rather than a playmaking one. If you look at the fullbacks he's gone for in Perifetta and Love, both of those guys can play 10. Sean Stevenson cannot. That's not his. Well, I'm sure he can, but he's not a natural playmaker in the same way that those two players are. And I think that gives you an idea as to where he's going with his fullback. He wants a playmaking fullback rather than he wants a fullback that can fill in at 10. Or can do it, kind of play that dual playmaker, or either side playmaker role, I think, rather than a pure out and out 15. I think that's probably where Sean Stevenson will come up short, because he's not the right fit for what All Blacks coach have been looking for the past few years. Just for those on the podcast who are listening via audio, Will Jordan is not considered because of injury, obviously in this one as well. So I think Sean Stevens is a bit of a square peg for a round hole as far as this at the moment.
Yeah. So Paul, probably just in summary, if you had to ask me who's the unluckiest player, the same question I would probably ask you is who would you have put down as the Super Rugby Player of the Year? And it's probably the same answer, Paul. Hoskins Tutu, seriously unlucky. So there could be other factors at play, or maybe even a case of forward coach. I would imagine Jason Ryan made that decision and probably looks at other players that come into the equation. Just something we missed on in terms of the back row. Might have been a contentious decision to some people. Ethan Blackadder, and obviously we spoke about possibly injuries are a little bit of a concern. If he can regain the form that he actually showed, especially back in 2021, I can recall him against the Springboks in 2 tests on the GC, second test, especially when the All Blacks went down, and he was easily the best player on the paddock. He fronted against the Boks that day, and I know he stands out at NPC level. And even when he came back from injury this year, obviously he wasn't 100%. He still looked pretty good in terms of work rate. And if anybody can get the best out of him, no doubt Razor can. It'll be interesting to see how these fellas go. Obviously, a few players you mentioned before, Kiri Ioane, probably told that he wasn't wanted, as well as Billy Harmon, real underrated player. If he was over in Australia, Billy Harmon would probably walk into that Australian side, Paul. So and
again, if you look at that back row, okay, you've got basically your sixes are Blackadder and Finau, your eights, Satiti and Sevilla, and your sevens are Jacobson and Papulehi. Right, it's 2 for each. Sure, Jacobson can also play 8. They can move around a bit, but if you get Kiriwani, he's a 6. Is he a Blackadder and Finau style 6? No, he's another round peg for a square hole. He's not the style of 6 that they're looking for. A bit like a Sean Stevenson is not the style of 15 they're looking for, to my mind. They're looking for someone who's a bit more it's not so much about the carrying, it's about the work rate and about sort of hitting breakdowns. To me, looking at who they've gone for. So again, I think it might not be all about his about attitude or whatever. It could be just purely game style or play style isn't kind of right for that one. On that kind of note, I think Rasmus Unikins, again, a player who I think had a great season, but it needs a couple of more seasons to mature and get used to Super Rugby before moving up to this kind of level. I think he's got a great future ahead of him. If you've got your Tomo Nawais and your Kini Naholos, who are your kind of your power wingers, and again, Caleb Clark's got that position at the moment, so they're going to need to put some pressure on him. Hopefully, those three kind of players. And Rayasi and Nana Story. At least I hope someone's talked to them and said, "Okay, this is what we want you to do to make it there." But particularly those three, the Nawais, Naholos, and Rasmus Unikins.
I was going to say, Paul, always hard to shine too when your side is struggling. We know that the Highlanders this year they really did struggle, even more so on the road at times, and I think it's just reflected in their number of selections. That people will point and look at the Crusaders and say, "Well, hang on, the Crusaders have got several people in there," but I think that's just one of those things when, like you said before, coach has a relationship with these players, knows how they tick, knows how he can get the best out of them, and I think that what it comes back to at the end of the day. We look through this whole side, probably about 3 or 4 guys that got kept out because of injury. Will Gordon, Cam Roigard, and Samasoni Takiaha, and also Xavier Numia. I think they probably would have all been part of the squad had they been available. Somebody out in the media obviously been talking porkies about Sam Cane possibly being part of this All Black squad. Yeah, well, that was just stayed a rumor. It'll be interesting to see if there is injuries, if he's there or thereabout, whether he's made himself available for Bay of Plenty. I believe he's actually made himself available for Bay of Plenty NPC team. I stand to be corrected on that, but that's sort of the rumor that I've been hearing. Other than that, I have to agree with you, Paul. Just the one unlucky player and probably the oddity, just having those 3 locks seems unusual. Would you say if they had taken an extra lock, would they have probably left an extra loose forward or prop out?
Yeah, you need 6 props. To me, they've got perhaps one back row heavier than they need to, and they're one lock shot shy. Now, there has been talk that Finau can cover that, but that's never a great move for me. He hasn't played there all season, or maybe he has done, but that's not his position. For a guy who's newly into the environment, asking him to play out of position, I think is really tough on him. So yeah, from that, I think that that would be, I think they've decided to take an extra back row and lose a lock on that one, and maybe that is down to maybe they're hoping for a Josh Lord or one of the other players has got is injured, but they haven't name checked an injured player like they did Sam Cane, for example. I mean, now Sam Cane, he's not injured at the moment, but he hasn't played all season. You can't pick a guy who's not played all season, even if he's now fit, especially when he's been away in Japan where you don't see him. So or don't have access to him. So that's why he's on the injured list. Folks who are wondering, saying, "Hey, is he actually injured?" No, he's not. 3 others are. The other 3 they name checked are, but he's not. So, but yeah, overall, Razor's not done a bad job. Just that one question mark around the number of locks versus back row. But then again, you've got Sam Darry there. I think Sam Darry will find himself travelling overseas and being pretty much a permanent member of this squad because they do need cover for that. If someone of those puts up an injury in South Africa,
listen, what I was going to say, whilst we're a little bit thin on locks, we've had some pretty good rookies come through this year, but the likes of obviously Wallace Satiti, but I also think the likes and Poliasi Pasaliso Tossi, beg your pardon, Pasilio Tossi, but also the likes of Jamie Henner in a Crusader side that struggled. He's looked really, really good as well, as did I thought Fabian Holland as well from the Highlanders. Looked really good, played for the Barbarians on the weekend and looked good when he came on. I know that he's a player that they're looking at. He brings a lot of size and a lot of athleticism to his game, and he will be available from 2025. So it'll be interesting to track how these young guys go, Paul. Paul, before I forget, I know we're probably going to close off shortly. Just basically want to, on behalf of a lot of the people in the rugby community and the ones that watch this show, also the the passing of Connor Garden-Bishop, 25 years old, really far too young. I know there were a lot of reports coming from the airport this morning down in Dunedin about certain All Blacks that were travelling up to Christchurch, but what it was a lot of Highlanders players that were heading for Connor Garden-Bishop's funeral, which was excuse me, held today. So once again, thoughts and prayers go out to his family. It just shows you how fickle life can be. Paul, very sad, and no doubt will be missed by his own family, as well as his brother Jackson Garden-Bishop as well. So yeah, sad time for the rugby community, especially down that way.
Yeah, far too young, and thoughts to his family and friends there on that one. So as you say, Steve, yep, time for us to wrap up on that sad note. We will be back next week on at Monday at 8 p.m. And we'll be looking forward to because it's how long away are we from the actual the test matches? He says quickly trying to search on the Tribe Sports app when the game is. So this coming weekend we've got the Japan 15 versus the Maori New Zealand Maori, and then the first test against England is on the 6th of July. So we do get one weekend off with just that one game to chill out.
Yes, I was going to say that New Zealand Māori team named tomorrow as well. So a bit of an exciting time for Māori rugby heading up to Japan to play 2 tests. So it'll be interesting to see the makeup of that squad. So maybe some of the players who missed out on the New Zealand Māori possibly involved with that particular side.
Yep, absolutely. So it's the 2 tests up there. So yeah, so folks, stay safe and do have a little breather before the international season properly kicks off. Those ones at the weekend, they shouldn't have happened. It hasn't started yet. Let's be honest. Cheers, guys.